Hello and welcome to another edition of Clifton's Clicks, your Cliff Notes to the Cosmos. And as always, I am your host, Clifton Smith, and I welcome you with all my love, respect, appreciation, gratitude, and motivation to make things happen here on our Earth. Sure, why not? That sounds good. I'm going to begin, as I always do, with an ode to our sponsor here, Structured Water. So good. Every time. So good. So, what I wanted to talk to you about, I'm really excited because I'm finally in an area, this is episode 21, of really new, fresh content that comes to me, clicks that have come to me within a very short period of time and actually come as a result of self-reflection and rewatching these videos, because half the time I don't even know what I'm talking about, or I'm not aware of what I'm talking about. I should say, that's probably a better way of putting it. And so as I was watching it and sharing some of the clips of watching some of my previous episodes with Victoria, it's incredible because she is so intuitively intelligent and has her own perspective on vibrational awareness, and we've gone through this journey together. And what's great is there's some clarifying points that may not be clear that she brings up, and does so in a very loving way. Because feedback for creating things like this is sometimes can be a touchy subject, and having someone in your life who provides that feedback in a very loving way to perhaps help steer you in a direction without crippling your motivation, and rather continuing to motivate you, is a very powerful force, and I'm very appreciative of her and of that. And as I was watching it, I want to go back and touch upon a few things before getting into some fun stuff about how we can really ground this to make some good money. What money? Well, yeah, money. If you can tie it to money, you've now got some people listening. If you can be like, I can make you money, listen to this, right? I mean, it's like the number one sales tool in the book, right? But we finally come to that part in realization, which is awesome. But some of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick was when we were talking about food and how gurus or thought leaders, even governments and entities, even your parents, right, or your girlfriend, recommend you eat something. Your doctor, change your diet. And when you're able to change the diet, or if you change the diet, then that shows that you respect them as an authority figure to impact your life. Because it's one thing to sit here nodding your head yes to all the suggestions and thoughts and do nothing about it, right? And in fact, a lot of self-help people are in that space. A lot of doctors are in that space. There's a huge cost for, regardless of how you might view our medical system, there's a huge cost that we're incurring as a society for the lack of adherence to the protocols prescribed by doctors for staying regular on prescriptions. And it's like prescription adherence is like a multi-billion-dollar cost, right? Won't dive too deep in that, but even in the Western medicine, when we have all the authority figures and all the support and are working to make things as easy as possible to pop our pills, we still aren't popping the pills, right? And that's because behavior change is really challenging for humans and human nature. And so when you're able to make that behavior change, or if you are the voice that motivates that behavior change, then you become a very powerful figure in that person's life because you've altered and affected their behavior change. Of course, it might start out small, but then gradually, if you orchestrate it in a way, you can really create some radical shifts in people's lives, and of course, hopefully for the better. And this is, where it starts to open up to questioning certain people who profess very sort of out there ideas, they start to be considered, or you start to enter and encroach that sort of, this is like a cult thing, because you're professing such a radical change to what might be understood as the norm. Um, and with that aside, one of the things that I had mentioned was the food that you consume based on what is prescribed to you is going to have an effect in your body. And from a biochemical perspective, it may be working to bring you more into alignment or balance, which one must question, what does balance and alignment mean? And if you go towards the quantified self route, there's a movement of, we're all different at all different times. And so therefore and then we go through these different sensitivities, and seasonality affects us, and our lifestyle affects us. And then we go down this huge rabbit hole of like so super specific details that we need to prescribe a specific protocol. And what's great is there's technology out there that's doing this. I've looked at some incredible technologies out there. IQU is one of them that I think is probably top notch, as well as there's an incredible scientist, Kamesh, who has an incredible infrastructure that he's working on in India and to bring into Native American populations here. That is pretty incredible. Of course, one starts to question then, what are you going to do when you aggregate all the data, all the DNA, all the lifestyle habits, all the food habits of people, of society? You can certainly create a very enlightened ecosystem, which is something that I advocate for and really wish it to happen. At the same time, you can really use those tools for not good, and you can engineer genocide. You can engineer famine. You can engineer collective aggression, especially if you start to look at it from an energetic or even an Ayurvedic perspective. If you want people to just sit there and just do what they're told, you put them in that state where they eat, I think it's tamasic food, just sedated. They have no life force to do something different, so they become the best drones ever. I mean, it's a genius play from like a societal control mechanism. If you want to start to really get people aggravated and start to really incite some revolution, then you give them Rajasic or whatever the aggravated food is. If you want them to build stuff, you make them aggravated, because no one's going to build stuff that's like really, who are just relaxed. Like, no, life's good. Yeah, I show up, work's good, not doing much, but things are great. How kids are great, I'm doing great. No, that's not the workforce that the shareholders who are expecting massive returns in the tech industry want. They want rapid change and revolutionary technology that kills and burns out all the workers. And so what do? You just feed them with a dietary lifestyle that is just all about go, 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 go. Why? Because you're trying to build something from scratch in a short period of time that's dictated by the venture capitalists' expectation of the returns and the intentionality of the founders to create a radically transformed society in some form or aspect and layer of the matrix. And it's not sustainable, and we see it. I mean, it's literally like virality, like a viral video. Remember planking, or the ice bucket challenge? They're super popular and they crash, and that's exactly what happens with the startups. Super popular and they crash because they don't have this consistent foundational buildup. But that's fine if it's not fine. It's awful. It's awful. As someone who's gone through that startup field and explored venture capital, it's just not sustainable, and it's damaging to some of our brightest and smartest individuals who are doing it to create a better future, and all those efforts go wasted off of silly ideas that are low vibration in nature, that are pushed forth to just extinction, killing all of their inner chi for the personal profit gain of specific venture capitalists. Now, of course, you shouldn't boo-hoo the people because they know it, it's the game. It's part of the game because there's massive payoff, and you glorify the massive payoff to get people in. It's the modern equivalent of the gold rush, and you play on people's greed. You play on that narrative. You start playing that frequency of you could be like Silicon Valley, you can be like Elon Musk, you can be like Jeff Bezos, and then you look at the distribution of the successful startups, and 95, 99% of them fail. And they don't fail for lack of trying. Let me tell you that much, right? People are putting their passion, their hard energy, and effort in it, and aren't getting a payback. It's a very, very corrupt cycle from a life force, energetic, vibrational perspective. And wow, I didn't mean to go there, but clearly I've got that in me. And where I was thinking I was going, but it's true. Everything I'm saying is like 100% agree, true. And that's why I really appreciate the more modest foundational approach of value investing. However, of course, technology is kind of like throw, shit at a wall and see what sticks. And what I'm saying is that we can do much better. We can be far more strategic, far more intentional, far more cosmically and divinely guided than simply this, pure probabilistic approach. Which, by the way, is the approach that pharma, is doing. Biopharmaceutical. They're no longer looking to nature for inspiration. They're simply creating specific algorithms to test all the different combinations to see what works and what sticks for a specific population. I mean, it's a great approach, very logic, very sound, very modeled, very stable quarterly earnings. But of course, they're going through issues because they haven't found a big hit recently, and some layoffs are happening. It's the difference between, and it's extra work. I mean, it's the difference between you're creating a blend, and instead of just having fun, being guided, you go, okay, product one with product two, product one with product three, and you just take that manual approach, and it's very methodical, which is fine, but it's also a lot of extra work. And we have the tools and capabilities to simply receive the answer of what it should be. Oh, 1 with 5 and 7. Okay, let me smell it. Oh, wow, this is great. Yeah, let's do it. And then what's even more painful is people who are divinely guided who also do all the extra work. Like, oh, this is good, but let me compare every single option and then conclude that 157 is the right way to go. And it's a bit frustrating because it's extra work and you see them go through extra work. But hey, if that's their process, then what's happening is they'll enter into a certain point where all that extra work starts to really weigh them down, and they need to just clear themselves to get to that next level and trust that this is the new operating software that works really, really well. And that is a leap that an individual must take on their own. So getting back to the food, right, is when we look at the diagram or the classification of food and how it affects the body. Of course, we talked about fat. Of course, fat, it takes more energy to break it down. And it takes longer to break down fat than it does carbohydrates. Well, we're in a society now where we sit all day and we think. So we don't need fuel that is readily available. We need it that's consistent, slow burning, and we're not actually moving our body. We're moving our mind. Where in the industrial age, and even in today's day, those who do farming and do a lot of work, manual work, especially like doctors or nurses who are running around, the hospital, they need a higher carbohydrate diet because they need that energy, that constant source of energy. But beyond that, eating for your lifestyle, when you eat foods, you're not just getting the carbs, proteins, and fats. You're getting the DNA that is encoded in these fruits and vegetables. I'm just going to limit it to fruits and vegetables, but it could also be animal meat. And so the question is, what DNA do you want to assimilate into your body? And of course, you have digestion and metabolism and ATP process, etc. but what DNA do you want to expose your body to? And that's really the key here. Are you looking for DNA that is in the wide open nature? Or are you looking for DNA that is in like a closed off, enclosed system? Because when you look at it from a vibrational perspective, yeah, you go to a beautiful like cherry orchard or orange, orchard. Is it an orchard? I think it's called an orchard. An orange farm orchard. Anyway, that's beautiful. You're outdoors, nature. It's warm. It's sunny. I want that DNA in my body. Besides, of course, the nutritional benefits, the calories and the carbs, etc. But how about the DNA of a CAFO, a confined area feeding operation, where they grow cows? And you want DNA that, by the way, is passed down 13 generations. 13 generations, humans. So in animals, most likely the same thing. Do you want DNA of 13 generations of slavery and enclosement in confined area feeding operation where these cows are raised? That's a lot of negative DNA. And knowing that we are programmed based off of that DNA and we respond with that DNA, and that DNA impacts us and its energetic information impacts us, it's very clear why you would not eat any animal that is enclosed in these spaces from an energetic perspective, because you are consuming that DNA. And of course, they talk about trauma that is stored in the fascia. And this, of course, is from eating the flesh. But I'm talking too about the milk and the eggs. Like, do you want that DNA do you want to consume the DNA of oppression? Do you want the information that cow had of being hooked up to the milking machines, and the DNA that was passed on from her ancestor? It's a her, right? Yeah. Her ancestors for 13 generations to be encoded in that milk. Well, it's there. It's a byproduct. Do you want it to be in the egg of the bird? Regardless of how happy that bird is right now, you got 13 generations of DNA that bird is embedding into that egg. Do you want that kind of oppression to enter into your physical body, your temple, the thing that stores and holds the capacity for vibrational awareness? And for you to live in a high vibe life, you can't. You can't free yourself if you're consuming DNA information encoded in food that is based off of slavery and entrapment. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And that's why you look at ancient traditions, and they have a very specific, strict protocol before you do these energetic healing medicines. Whether or not those are good things is not for this video. But you have to purify your body, because otherwise all that medicine, all that internal work is simply just to remove the food's trauma, the food's DNA of oppression and of negative vibes. So most of the time, when you're doing this inner work, if you don't have an allocated change in your lifestyle based off of no longer consuming these negative DNA experiences, then all this inner work you're going to do is just simply to remove the negative DNA, the trauma of the food you're eating. And that is one of the most frustrating things ever, is if you're doing all this inner work and it turns out you're not making much progress, well, you better look at the DNA of the food that you are consuming. Because that is a huge part, which is why there's a lifestyle advocacy toward a specific sattvic diet that is espoused by the yogis, and one that I follow. And now it has some nutritional deficient things in it, or things that need to be adjusted, or a transitionary period, because my body has been grown up on beef forever, basically. And it certainly saved my family's life, and I'm very grateful and appreciative of that. But in order to do this ascension work, in order to have a high vibe life, you've got to clear your body of all this negative DNA that is being encoded in the food that you eat. And it's not encoded in some scheme, by some, leaders or whatever. It's encoded by the experience of the animals that you're consuming the food of or the food product of. Now, of course, if you're doing a synthetic food, a non-organic, then yeah, you are encoding your body with the DNA of the manipulation of organic life forms. And as I mentioned before, genetically modified organisms, I eat bananas all the time. They're like the number one GMO, right? Because there's so many bananas, and this banana is delicious. There's hundreds of bananas, and, I kind of don't want seeds in my bananas. But I'm knowing that that is a GMO. But that doesn't pale in comparison to the extents that GMO has gone today. And luckily there's a huge advocacy against it. But post-World War II, we had a huge population that we needed to feed. And so we needed to figure out how to feed them. And so if the choice was starvation or eating GMO food, as a society, as leaders of society, yeah, advocating for GMO food over starvation is probably the right approach. Now, if you go through the yogic style, they go, no, reject that food. You can live off of breath. And yeah, in a way, there is advocacy for that. But remember, we've come to a point in civilization, in technology, where we no longer have to do that. And there's elevated reasoning that needs to come into your diet and your lifestyle, beyond simply from a caloric or macronutrient perspective. And so I just want to leave you with the food discussion is, what DNA, what information do you want to encode in your body with every bite you take, every sip you drink? Are you part of some chemist's laboratory experiment that you want to consume? Are you part of some confined area feeding operation that you want to consume? Are you part of some industrialized farming operation that you want to consume? Or do you want to consume free, warm nature? It's up to you. But think about it, and that from a vibrational perspective, that's another way of thinking about it, is what DNA, what vibes go into your food. And that information is passed down from person to person and animal to animal. So consider that as an additional point. And as I mentioned, what's the reason? Am I going to science for this? To advocate this? Kind of. But I'm really going from a vibrational perspective. Like, how high vibe of a life do you want to live, and how much work do you want to have to go through to clear yourself when you go through the clearing process to lead a high vibe life. So that's how I'm advocating. So then the next thing I wanted to talk about was magnetism. And we talked about vibrational frequency, and in a Merkaba you have an energetic component and a electromagnetic component, right? And it's that electromagnetic component that I want to hone on right now. And I'm flipping back between my notes, and we talked about how magnetism, in order for a high vibe thought, you have to have the capacity in your being to store that kind of high vibe information. And so you go through clearing the trauma, clearing out your inner space. You make sure that the food that you eat doesn't have that trauma, because then you're just like doing extra work all the time. Your lifestyle is one that reduces a lot of external trauma. Watching Law and Order every night before you go to bed is just inundating you with negative vibes. And I'm going to turn a light on, actually, if you don't mind. It's getting a little dark in here. As I mentioned, Law and Order, kind of funny, right? Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. Law and Order. This ain't no Law and Order show. Okay. Let's get the light on. Yes, the light is on. Okay. So you have the capacity in your body that you clear out, right? Through the inner work, through your diet and your lifestyle, through doing movement and making sure your meridians are clear and your fascia is clear, right? And you're well hydrated. The next step is to be able to understand the different frequency states that you can get into, the alpha, beta, delta, theta, gamma states, because you want to be able to pull in a high vibratory piece of information. And this is assuming you want to have a high vibe thing that you pursue. Oops. And then the final part, and the high, whoa, that was the light. It's okay, Victoria, it didn't break. Okay, well, yep, that just happened. All good. All good. Okay, well, things like that happen. So you go through different exercises, skills, practices, and vibrationally aware experiences to help you understand how to get into various vibrational states, right? Because if you want to pursue a high vibe information, live a high vibe life, you need to be able to pull in high vibe thought currents in order to move you forward in your progress in whichever area you're focused on: health, wealth, relationships, spirituality. And then the final part of magnetism, right? Because you have to be able to, using the magnet, you have to be able to have a strong like attraction. Like I'm pulling this high attraction mechanism, which is based on the law of attraction and whatnot. You also have to have charisma and connection, because a high vibe thought, and in the manifestation of a high vibe thought, it's not about simply pulling it down and grounding it, which we've talked about the need to ground it into manifestation. It's about being able to connect with it enough that it holds inside of you so it doesn't leave you to go somewhere else. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I totally thought of that idea. Why didn't I do it? Well, one is it might not have been your passion and your purpose, but two, you may not have had the amount of magnetism in your life it was required for you to make it happen. You may have been able to have that inner capacity to store it. You may have been in that state to be able to pull it down. You may have been able to even ground it and make sense of it, but to actually make it happen and manifest is you need the charisma to be able to make it happen in this world. And in order to do that, you need to connect with it and to others through a heart-centered space to really encapsulate the vibrational frequency, so that way it becomes, you start to embody it. And what I mentioned about embodying it and living the mission, and investors get this right, venture capitalists get this right. They ask, where is your, what do you have a day job? Is this your life? Because people might have great ideas, might be very well qualified, but if they're not super passionate and not all in, then it's a clear indicator that there's not a match, and it's an X, a big red flag to invest in a company. They have to be all in. They have to embody that thought current and that idea. And the higher the vibration of that thought current, the more you have to have the capacity and charisma and attraction to that idea in order to embody it and manifested into reality. Because if it doesn't, you might have pulled it in, but it's not going to stick, and it's going to go somewhere else. And that magnetism is about connection to it being your highest expression, or what people might call feel like fulfilled, feel that it is their purpose, as well as the charisma to go make it happen no matter what, to go find the energetic connection that the thought current is leading you towards. Because you are there to respect and honor and embody that thought current. And so that thought current might lead you to various directions in life, and you have to be willing to put yourself forward and lean into it. The obstacle is the way to go wherever it's going to take you, as well as the ability to have the charisma to connect with others, where when the idea, the thought current is showing you this is the way, this is the way, this is the way, you are there to recognize and appreciate that that's the way, lean into the discomfort and the obstacle, as well as provide the capacity to connect with whatever is past that obstacle or whatever that obstacle presents. So it's not just the male energy of pushing yourself past discomfort, but it's also more of that female energy of connecting in whatever way, shape, or form that is required for you to magnetically attract the additional, energy that the idea is showing it needs. And so, in a way, that ties back into your capacity as an individual to have emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, and charisma. And so I'm really diving deep and clarifying, the Merkaba, which is the, two pyramids, one flipped upside down and squashed, kind of like the Star of David if you made a three-dimensional version of it. Because the Merkaba is what holds the light body, and the light body is the energetic vibration meeting the electromagnetic vibration with a spiral up direction or spiral down direction, and they both work together to hold the manifestation in the physical plane. Because if you just had one, it would just spiral you up and leave you, and then the other one would just hold you down. And so you need both to manifest itself. And as Merkabas grow, they grow in very complex geometrical shapes, but they need to be sustained. And what this means really is that an idea exists at all times. We can access it at all times. We can pull it down based off of our inner work, or we can pull it down actually by getting to a specific state. And we can use psychedelics, we can use breath work, we can use all these different tools and techniques to pull down the thought current. We can have the capacity to honor that thought current by doing the deep inner work and making sure our bodies are a container that's empty enough for that thought current to be in it. And then we have the charisma and connection, especially a heart-centered connection, with the idea of embodying that thought current and following it and respecting it wherever it leads you, and the charisma to connect with whatever life throws your way in that obstacle, as well as the courage to pass the obstacles that come up, in order for that magnetism to hold that thought current. And so I hope this was clear. It was a new click and realization for myself that ties in all these different self-help methodologies as to how and why the Merkaba is a beautiful example for creating and manifesting your business idea or your thought currents, alchemizing thought currents into reality, and why, from a business approach, it's important to do this inner work, because as society is moving towards and constantly desiring higher vibrational thoughts, or business ideas, your imperative as an entrepreneur and a business individual is to develop yourself. And so it's putting it into context why you would develop yourself from a business perspective, and how it makes sense. And why, as an entrepreneur, you may have thought of a few ideas, but not actually taken action on them, and then later seen them happen from others because of the magnetism, because of the electromagnetic force, and why it's important to be and develop heart-centered awareness, so that way you can magnetize and hold that thought current together. Remember how I mentioned that you have one vibratory current attracts another, and it holds over time and it becomes DNA. Well, that other current that's being attracted is that electromagnetic force. And so it's a beautiful combination and understanding um, of what I talked about previously. And the final part of this discussion is to talk about um, why. Remember, I mentioned that if your boss is upset and not in a high vibe, you're not going to be a high vibe. If your boss's boss is not in a high vibe, you're definitely not going to be in a high vibe, because the energy from a hierarchical approach diffuses downwards in the hierarchy, which is why sometimes from a vibrational based business, a more flat approach, flatter hierarchy is the best, because one person's individual vibe doesn't necessarily impact as many people as possible. It's also why making sure that executives are for better or worse, well paid and satisfied, because their energy will reverberate through the company. And even more important, why self development and self improvement and vibrational awareness is critical for a manager and an executive of these companies, as well as the hiring decision that is necessary for these corporations and companies to pick and choose who's going to be their top management and executives. Because then it creates an imperative for vibrational awareness and energetic health. It creates a necessity in today's day and age for these individuals to develop that profound capacity and that awareness, as well as the maintenance and recognition of vibrational awareness. Because if your boss's boss is coming in all upset and he or she has not had the training, of course, they'll talk about it through some sort of psychological approach, saying, oh, they don't have enough emotional intelligence, or they have burnout from a biochemistry perspective. But no, if they don't have the vibrational awareness necessary, then they're going to be spewing all their negative vibes through all their people. And I myself was one of them. In my previous startup, I was so feeling pressured and not valued in my organization that even though I was so committed to the vision, I had this sentiment about me that people could feel. And I was very pressed for doing and running so many different things. But at its core, my vibrational energy and my energetic health was low because of the thoughts that I was carrying. And of course, I thought that didn't matter because I was smiling and I was showing up and I was working really hard and I was putting myself out, like forcing myself to appear and be happy and very grateful, because I was. But energetically, there was something deep within me that was not happy, and they could feel that. And so there is a financial imperative for vibrational awareness to be part of the curriculum for executives in today's day and age. So it's imperative for startups to have that awareness. It's imperative for venture capitalists to have that awareness. It's imperative for corporate managers and executives to have. And then the final part is it's vital for shareholders, because the energetic state of shareholders is what determines the value of the company. Because if all the shareholders think that a company is not worth the price that their stock is listed at, they're going to sell it. And so you want to make sure that they're happy. And if they're not happy, the company is going to feel it, and it's going to exude itself through the pressure that's felt from the top level of management all the way down to the bottom. If the shareholders aren't happy, that energy impacts the ecosystem that is the company. And it may not necessarily be the view or perspective of the shareholder as it pertains to the specific company. The shareholder may not have a low vibe thought about the company. He or she or they may simply just be in a low vibe state, and that exudes kind of like BO into the companies and the stocks that they own. And so shareholders, it's so pivotal that they are high vibe as well. And that aligns with the venture capitalist discussion. And then here's the one of the most important parts as well, is that you can create systems and structures that specifically affect the vibrational state of the shareholders of corporations in such a way that it affects their vibe and the perceived value they have in the stocks that they hold. And they call it shareholder sentiment. And it's this ambiguous, multivariable equation that is like so off. And it's all about vibrational health. And so you can see the media and the news and the food and the weather would all impact us as an individual level. Our vibes are affected based off what we see, what we eat, what we do. And when we play the role of shareholder, how we feel, view, and act has an impact on the energy of the stock or equity that we hold in a company, which has a ripple effect in the company. Now, it's less direct, or it's less of an impact if it is just a general feeling. But if it's specifically targeted towards some sort of fear, greed, insecurity, scarcity motive, then it's going to impact the company more. And if it's specifically targeting the industry that the company is in, that the shareholder owns, then that's going to impact it even more. And so you can start to see how, from a macro level, you can develop an algorithm that uses vibrational awareness to create certain metrics and parameters to monitor the investors and shareholders of these corporations, to monitor the value or the perceived value, and therefore benchmark it against the current trading value of the company. And you can use the benchmark and energetic vibrational health of the executives as benchmarks as well to predict how the energetic vibe of the rest of the company operates. And it becomes this full self-fulfilling prophecy in which you can really start to target and enact change on a macro level and use it as a proprietary trading mechanism to predict stock prices, which of course everyone loves that because you make money or lose money. And so you have billions of dollars in the stock market, trillions maybe, billions, whatever, we'll just say billions, on these predictive algorithms that hedge funds have invested tons of money in. And I guarantee if you put a vibrational health, a vibrational awareness model together that maps these things, you'll be able to accurately predict the perceived value of the company and the perceived performance of the company. Not only that, you can start to see how specific news outlets, media outlets, movies, songs, and weather impacts the vibrational health of the investors and the executives, and therefore the stock prices. And that's how we can ground these cosmically channeled information down to vibrational health and awareness, expand it out into a group cohesive dynamic as a company and understand how shareholders impact it and executives impact it, and extract it into a economic revenue making model as a hedge fund. And you can see certain like drops of this happening because top 5 business challenges of corporations these days, they're not engaged. They need to deal with innovation. It's like, yeah, change is happening. You got new employees that you got to get and old ones that got to go. You got new technology you got to adopt. You got new vendor relations, and you got new customer relationships. You got to manage all those. But they're taking it from a non-scientific perspective. They're trying to, but they don't break it down to the base level of a numerical system. And the vibrational approach, vibrational awareness does that. It does that at the individual microscopic level. It does it at the cosmic level. And why it's important to you is because you can now tie it to your economic, financial well-being through an investment model. And yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I just spilled the beans on it. Let's go do it. Simple as that. I'm so confident about that. A hedge fund based on vibrational awareness. You've got all this money in AI and blah, 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 trying to figure out predictive models, and it's all there in the science. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. That's what I wanted to share. And the thing is like, money isn't the main motive, but, people pay attention when it is. Because then you can actually create the ecosystem that you're trying to profess. And it's one of the different approaches of being purely spiritual in nature and taking spiritual cosmic truths and applying them in an economic perspective is it starts to move a lot of gears because we have used money as a proxy for the collective consciousness approval and the thought currents that we currently value. And so, if you can tie spirituality or these high vibratory thought currents to the current thought current that we are currently valuing and exchanging, then that's how you can make change. So it's not so much about a desire to make money, but money is simply a proxy for how we can effectively, at scale, move the economy and society towards a new paradigm that religion has been professing or spirituality has been professing. They just simply don't know how to do it because they don't have the capacity, the magnetism to make it happen. They don't have the multidisciplinary approach to be able to navigate all the different APIs and protocols and be able to create software to talk to antiquated systems that the vibrational awareness does, that I have been able to do. And I didn't even know I was doing it. And I'm not saying it like from a bragging standpoint, but I didn't even know I was doing this. I was just focused on upgrading my operating software, and this is where I'm at. That's cool. And so, of course, back to, case number 1 is, okay, I've got the capacity to hold, big, high vibe thought currents, doing the inner work, blah, 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 blah. I've gotten the high state ability to channel and access data to get these kind of ideas and work through it. Now, do I have and the third part for the magnetism is, do I have the charisma and the passion, the heart-centeredness to hold on to it and charge the frequency and attract it and hold it to make it so? And do I have the masculine-based energy to follow it wherever it goes, and the feminine-based connective capacity to connect wherever it leads me to make this happen and manifest it? That's cool. And the answer is yes. Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. I've been working on this freaking forever. It makes so much sense. I've got incredible supportive girlfriend, family, and like lifestyle practice, spiritual practice. I've got incredible companies I've helped. I've got lots of people wanting this. I mean, who doesn't want this? It's elevating the vibration of the planet in a very scientific method that pulls from the highest cosmic truths and improves your life. It improves how you work, it improves how you eat, and it makes you money. Guys, team, let's do it. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I don't see anything bigger than this happening. Well, awesome. Well, with that, I'm gonna go cry because it's beautiful, and I thank you for watching. As always, I greet you with so much love, respect, appreciation, gratitude, motivation. And for all of you who have helped me and continue to help me on this journey and to hold space for me to get to this point and to the points hereafter, I thank you. And yeah, I'm going to go grab a tissue. I don't cry in a tissue, but I'm just going to go click, gather, and cry. So yeah, so much love. Bye.